Yeah, I'd like to call to order the joint board meeting, the Western Lane Fire and Authority, Scioto Valley Fire and Rescue, and Western Lane Ambulance District. Would you rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and Director Ethel, second, please. Do a roll call, please.
Yes, Stephanie Barr and WLFEA directors, Stephanie Restrepo, here, Lori Campbell. Keith Stanton,
Lori's here.
Here, yeah.
Jim Policing,
Here.
and David Carrillo.
Here.
Western Lane and WLFEA directors, Cindy Russell, Linda Stent,
Here.
Adam Holbrook.
Here.
Vanessa Buss, Mike Webb.
Here.
And Director Russell did say she's out of the country, so she wouldn't be here today. Any public comments? None? Okay, we do have forums for both, or all three agencies, so that's good. So the first thing I wanted to draw your attention to is that screen right there in the front. See those two cute dogs at the bottom, there's the majority of that. They belong to me, but we have these this program or this app on various screens around various stations, areas where the crews gather. I have one in my office. And it's called First Arriving, and it really gives us everything. It gives us scheduled events, shows our staffing, shows the weather. If we get a call, you'll see it'll pop up with the routing information. Although there's still some errors, still puts us like over into France or something, somebody's called, but it's working on that. We got pictures of our staff, which really helps, especially our mover staff, just so I get to know who they are. Birthdays, updates for meetings, wildfire updates for the Pacific Northwest, apparatus locations, training opportunities, of course, the pictures of pets. So it's been, you see it's got the weather on the left side there, which shift is on, and whose certs are expiring. So it's been a good addition to our communication policy for all the crews and staff. But I have to give a lot of credit to one of my firefighters, Jessica Marchinsky, who we offered her the opportunity to run with this, and she's been doing a fantastic job. So I wanted to give her a certificate appreciation. You would come over here. So certificate appreciation from Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority proudly awarded to Jessica Marchinsky for leadership role in design and maintenance of the First Arriving program. And we'll leave that up for the meeting, see that. Well, and now I asked Melissa to give us an update on the Booker program, and Vanessa last meeting and asked for an update, so we'll try and follow up with her on our youth advocate position.
Thanks, Gene. I just wanted to start by bragging a little bit. Last week, the city of Florence gave Will Kerr a proclamation recognizing September 14th through September 20th as Crisis Responders Appreciation Week. Chief and our whole team accepted this honor, and we accepted it from the mayor and at their board meeting. We're grateful and appreciative for this. And I brought the proclamation if anybody's interested in seeing how that works. Awesome. Thank you. And our staffing levels are really, really great right now. We have 7 part-time responders and full-time team members, which is really good because we normally average about 60 calls a month on the high end. And last month we broke our record with 89 calls. And our client advocates worked on 110 follow-ups last month. 7 of them were in person. We usually do follow-ups over phone, but lately we were doing a lot and responding in person whenever needed. Our youth client advocate, everyone calls and saw 3 clients in the first month. And I would just talk a little bit about our youth client advocate position. That was originally granted to us with a DOJ grant and a partnership at Boylan Health Club. However, that grant ended and we were able to extend that position out for another year by rolling the youth client advocate position under the SAMHSA grant with our year 1 carryover fund into year 2. And we're coming up on year 3 SAMHSA right now, and we don't really know what that's gonna look like. If we're year 3 SAMHSA is the least amount of money out of all 4 years. So we're not sure if we're going to get that carryover money. So we made the hard decision to end the youth client advocate position. But I just want to be really, really clear that just because we don't have a dedicated youth client advocate doesn't mean we're not serving youth anymore. We're still going to be doing the same things. It's just going to be distributed. The work will be distributed amongst our team. So we'll still be receiving referrals in the same way. Those will go to me and Cindy. And we'll still be making phone calls and seeing kids either at the school, at the library, or in their home to do some heavier case management with them as needed. So the program itself is not going away. It's just a dedicated position. And funding. That's always an issue. I did hear this week from Lane County that we will be getting the next 3-month extension. So for October, November, and December, we'll be getting that amendment to cover the rest of the year. However, they have no idea what next year is going to look like. So come January, we don't know anything about our funding, whether we get it, whether it'll be reduced, whether it'll be more, because the cost of services has gone up quite a bit. So we honestly have no idea what 2026 is going to look like yet. And then we're still looking at other ways to make funding more sustainable. We're hoping to kind of break away from the county someday and just do Medicaid billing on our own. Right now, we have to bill Medicaid with $0 claims. So we're hoping to eventually get that revenue, which if we could, that would completely sustain our program on its own. We also have the association, which we do fundraising and apply for other grants. So that brings me to a fundraiser that we have planned October 25th at the Elks. It's a family bingo night. It's a week before Halloween, so it is a dress up costume thing. There'll be prizes, there'll be some great gift baskets and a 50-50 raffle. There'll be a spaghetti meat dinner. So bring your family, kids, come out and have a good night. And there's flyers hanging downstairs too, if you need more information on that. And the other event coming up is on October 5th. It's a veteran documentary called Here It Is Better. And that is gonna be, it's hosted by us at the Three Rivers Casino. And it's about suicide prevention with veterans. There is EE available if anybody's interested in that. But that'll be a really great event as well. And then she wanted me to share about a call that we had, which was kind of unusual. We were tapped out to assist with law enforcement with a 2-year-old boy. He was found in pajamas with just a blanket and a bottle with water in it, no shoes, just wandering around the Safeway parking lot. The night shift worker, and this was at 4 o'clock in the morning, the Safeway night shift worker found the little boy, scooped him up, called law enforcement. Law enforcement didn't know what to do with him, called us out. So the little boy kept pointing like across Highway 101 and saying, "Mama, over there, Mama." So we walked a little bit to see if we could go knocking on some houses. The officer followed us in his cop car with the lights on, cross 101. We made it down to Sunset Apartments where we kind of ran into a dead end. And then at that point, the little boy was just pointing in every direction saying, "Mama." So we walked back to Safeway and got some diapers and wipes, some goldfish, brought him back here to Station 1, and by that time, the couple that were caring for him had realized that he wasn't home in bed and had called 911. They showed up and, law enforcement met him outside to make sure that they could identify the boy, who didn't want to just give him over to anybody.
Right.
And it turns out that it was the aunt and uncle that were taking care of him. He actually lives in Hillsborough. But his aunt and uncle and him were staying over on 7th Street, so he was pointing in the right direction. He wasn't too far off, but scary enough, he did make it all the way across Highway 1. So it was about a 2 to 3 hour ordeal before he got back home.
So did he just wake up in the middle of the night, go for a walk?
Yes, they did get home and they were doing some stuff to help out with his mom in Hillsborough, so they didn't get home till 1 o'clock in the morning. They all woke up at 3 o'clock, they changed his diaper, gave him that bottle with water in it, and put him back to bed. So they thought everything was okay. But then he snuck out between 3 and 4.
Oh, my.
And since they had just picked him up from his mom, they hadn't had time to like do anything as far as childproof the front doors or put locks on anything, so he snuck out. And thank God he made it safely.
Yeah,
safely across the street. Yeah, that was a pretty scary call, but a really good outcome and very, very different and unusual than what we usually do. I'm very glad I had my teammate with me to change the diaper. Oh, the baby. So that's all I have for today. Is there any questions?
On your budget, unknown on the budget for next year. They gonna give you any kind of heads up before the end of the year, or it's gonna be another 11th hour kind of deal?
Or later. And they're having some problems with Oregon Health Authority and agreeing on a contract from them. And then I don't know for sure, but I'm also getting some information that specific source of canceling services within Lake County. And I know that part of the funding for mobile crisis scope is coming from Pacific Source of Trillium to Lake County. And then they funnel that money down to us too, so between Oregon Health Authority and the CCOs, I'm just not sure if they really know what's gonna happen either. So,
And Volker's really setting the standard in the state, so it's tough for various agencies to figure out how to handle the successes they're having in there to fund it.
What's the annual budget?
are combined,
Yeah. For
that's a good question, I'll have to get back to you.
like your sources, good to know all your sources.
That was 600,000.
Combined. all of
Yeah.
it.
County, SAMHSA,
Also,
two people, yeah.
yeah, it's some.
Chuck with the grants, they cover different things.
It's at least this year, is because we also have a piece health funding. And so we might have to figure it out with all the grants trying to carry over, sometimes we put that into them.
Thanks, Louis.
Thank you.
Okay, now it's my pleasure to introduce, we have a special guest, Tiffany Brown from Lake County Emergency Management. And we've had some questions over the last couple of months about emergency planning, just for us, as the county as well, so invited Tiffany, and some of you know her, I think, but some of you don't, so now's your opportunity to question. Learn more about emergency management in Lake County.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Chief.
Sure.
Thank you for having me. My name is Tiffany Brown. I'm the County Emergency Manager. I've been on the job for 18 months. And I don't tend to talk about what I did before, but I was on the North Coast. So I'm gonna mention it tonight. I came from Clatsop County where I did the job for 15 years. So I've spent quite a bit of time over here since I arrived. I didn't want to put all that, tsunami earthquake knowledge to waste. It's been a great partnership, both with the fire service and the city of Lawrence. The chief suggested that I maybe just talk for a few minutes before I get started about specific projects or questions about what is emergency management. It's a little nuanced, and I usually begin my presentations to anyone explaining the difference between emergency response and emergency management. And really, I wouldn't have a job if it weren't for emergency responders. We exist to support emergency responders, whether it's fire, police, public works, public health, or federal transition, whatever comes up. If there's a need for a higher level of coordination or advanced planning, those are kind of the hallmarks of emergency management, what we do differently. First responders, importantly, are looking at what's right in front of them. And so sometimes we come to the table to say, well, where could this lead? How could this get worse? What might we need to plan for? Everything we do falls into one of 4 phases: preparedness, which you know well, getting people ready, getting agencies ready with training, mitigation, which relates to, with respect to any hazard that we anticipate, what can we do ahead of time to lessen the impacts and get us back into working order faster. A recovery happens after the response and responses. So literally everything I do falls into one of those buckets. And so that ends up being sort of those downstream effects in the, in this wildfire environment all summer. Luckily, we didn't see a loss of property, personal property, but we were there. We're hosting calls every Friday, letting the cooperators know what's going on, just sharing the information in, information out, information in, information out, which tees us up to be more effective and efficient when we actually need to do something, just by leaning into that. We didn't see a lot of downstream effects, and where wildfire or any incidents concerned during response, that's where an agency comes into play. Do we need to evacuate people? Do we need to perform damage assessments on damaged homes? Really everything outside of the initial response that isn't handled by first responders, we have some role. We also are system administrators for the county's alert system, lane alerts. That's a big part of what we do during an emergency. Our team helps send out the evacuation notices and whatnot. Planning is a big part of what we do. Emergency operations planning, like the city's in the process of undertaking right now. Natural hazard mitigation planning. It's planning for hazards, and who knows what the future looks like, but for the last 10 years, that planning has been attached to very big dollars from the federal government in terms of grants. Anything else? Just broad brush cheek that you think I didn't mention?
Big is like, big.
Yeah, the size of Connecticut, they told me when I got the job.
Yeah.
It does create a challenge and an opportunity for us, right? One of the few counties that goes from the coast to the Cascades, and so everything we think about is well, and what about the coastal folks? And when I send out the report about the weather every week, there's always a big caveat about the coast.
How big is your staff?
My staff is 3. It's a pretty small staff for a county our size, but we've got a lot of talent there. And I'm 3 on what we call a blue sky day, right? But then we spin up, and probably our most visible and important responsibility is activating and managing the county's emergency operations center. If you're not familiar with Oregon statute, counties are required to have an emergency management program. Cities may, counties shall. That's been in place in every county, in every state in the country shortly after 9/11. And it has to do with coordination. And so we spend a lot of time on that emergency operations center actions, whether we're working on a program, playing with others, train like you fight, have tabletop or functional exercises to understand how it works, and every time we identify gaps and rates improvement.
I've got a question. So does the county have an incident command team? You folks are part of that under like logistics, maybe married into planning section.
Yeah, so do you, an incident management team is a team of very acutely determined positions to run an incident. We have, so we have our 3 people, and then we have what we call the red, white, and blue team, which is about 90 county employees that fill certain positions, ideally 3 deep. And so yes, planning section, I'll
Right.
tell you.
The incident command team, so chief, are you aware of them? Are they a type 1 team, 2 team? I mean, if you needed assistance for
It's
something.
different, it's more like with COVID. They had the incident management team. So it wouldn't be, we had wildfire. That would be a different incident management team that would be in. I think it would be probably liaison between the two groups, but, you know, operations, you know.
First wave, they would be involved.
Yeah.
Tsunami, they would. And you just said it yourself, the coast is forgotten.
Oh, I don't think I said that.
Well, that kind of alluded to, we are the coast.
You are the coast, yeah, you're here, and I really, relate to the challenges that coastal communities face from being sort of cut off, you know, in Clatsop County, we were all on the coast for the most part, but the resource, it wasn't different than the resources that we would need.
Right.
During a bad day, we're gonna be.
It's all coming from the east. Thank you.
So what happens, we've got a WLEA, it's our emergency operations group, and it's fairly city centric. There's areas within Western Line Ambulance's jurisdiction that go well beyond that, upriver areas that are isolated in any event. A lot of the discussion we were having a couple of, last month, revolved around how they would get noticed if there was an emergency. And people say watch duty or your lane alerts, but some of the places, Swiss Home Deadwood, the people up in Indian Creek and things likely don't have service, and if power goes out, they sure don't have service. Incidents like an ice storm or mudslides or flooding, they're cut off for weeks at a time. So how can we better prepare those communities to weather the storm while they have time to allow help to arrive? Because there's no way we're gonna be able to get to that quickly.
Absolutely.
And
Uh,
foster a more open communication, because I think they feel a little bit isolated and not knowing exactly who to call, when to call, when stuff hits the fan.
Sure, we've been working with Deadwood for the last few months.
Okay.
They contacted, yes, communications. It's interesting, it's really the inverse up there, right? Cell reception is only acquired by having Wi-Fi. And so it's landlines, it's old school out there. They contacted us after their small fire because they were concerned about the limited ingress and egress. And they wanted to start examining how they could use the secondary and tertiary roads to maybe drop into Lobster Valley, right? If they need to evacuate that way. And so that's the evacuation work is what prompted it, but it prompted conversations around communications, auxiliary communications. I'll tell you, if you don't know, they received a cash container through the Department of Human Services, Office of Resilient Emergency Management. I happened to be up there developing help okay signs the other day, and that was arriving. And so that's communications equipment, sat runner, and equipment that they applied for. So it's a challenge. And we can spend the time doing the things you don't need to be an emergency manager to know that communication is always a challenge in that environment. So, yes, we're focusing on those, what I call sort of frontier
There's something
areas.
that WLEA, Western Wind, Sisseton Valley should be doing with the county so that we can help them better facilitate that in the time.
I think we're tied in. I participate in WLOG and I, understanding that is this jurisdiction, I try to share information, about the partnerships that we're developing there.
I've never felt like the word by patients or predecessors in King, I mean, but I mean, I look at it, we're 20,000 people versus however many in the county, so.
I just think my biggest concern is making sure that the communities and the people that are running the fire departments or whatever in those communities have a clear path, they know who to call, when to call, and how to prepare before an incident happens, so they're ready to take it on when it comes. And when you're out of power for a week or a month in those communities, dealing with the communications is not the same thing. That's what we have.
Which is about the, okay, comes in the exact. Program.
I put one in my office.
We've been doing that.
I might the help, yeah.
Cool. It's not.
Do you want to say something?
Sure.
Yes, sure.
Very small. So, the Help OK signs, we didn't think of a more clever name. Is a campaign, is a program that we're just rolling out, during preparedness month. We've got kind of a 6-week campaign running from September 11th. To October 24th after the shakeout, kind of encompassing that 6 weeks. One of the things, we're just doing a campaign on our website every week. There's new guidance about different ways to get prepared. It culminates with the great shakeout and encourages people to do the great camp in the weekend after the shakeout, which is encouraging people to live at home with their go bags, without electricity, with whatever challenges them to sort of up their preparedness. We have a preparedness and outreach library, and every year during preparedness month, we try to implement one thing to kind of keep things interesting, and this year it was the Help OK sign. We planning on the coast, we think a lot about Cascadia, we think about coastal storms and winter storms inland. I think the ice storm was a really good example of, it was a good incident for showcasing things that we would see after an earthquake and tsunami. Responders were impacted, people were cut off from one another, people thought they were prepared and weren't as prepared as they thought. And so, this product kind of gets at that austere environment. They are intended for an environment where the communications may be degraded. First responders are in high demand and short supply, and we may have boots on the ground actually doing welfare checks and checking on people. What these signs do is enable residents to put it in their front window to indicate if they're okay or if they need help, so that if we do have people on the ground, whether that's first responders or whether that's a gated community and sort of the people that are, you know, or just the people that are checking on you. It helps us in that austere environment to enable those checking on people to move along to the next person if people are okay and knowing that they can still do. It's a simple program. It's something that people have an aha moment about. It gives everybody a way to get involved. And there's been tremendous buy-in, both from residents and agencies and communities. And that's a winner in emergency management. There are a lot of things we think are important that don't necessarily resonate with the people that we're working with. This is just really a simple idea that we will reach a lot. We printed the signs and then we reached out to agencies throughout the county and asked who would be willing to place them on their public counters so that we could then turn around and do a press release and let the public know that these signs were available. We printed 15,000. And we placed them on public counters in 45 locations throughout the county, here, Toon City, the fire department, and the city of Florence. So we're continuing to run the campaign. We did a press release to let people know where the locations were and they could pick up. I expect that we'll do an update at some point, just to kind of let people know how many signs we've distributed and to remind people where the locations are added. We've had people come on board and add new locations. So that's, and they are translated in Spanish in the lower right-hand corner. They come with flyers that explain what they are. It's not it's a simple concept, but and people get it immediately, but it's not immediately obvious to everyone. We put the translation in the corner for the sign holder, and then we have a flyer in Spanish as well. Those are kind of the highlights.
Do you have any other language besides Spanish?
We do not. But we could. If you, we have translation services, and it's really important that the messaging gets out to folks in the community, particularly those who are second language speakers. That puts them in the most vulnerable category, right? So if you see an unmet need, please talk to me about it.
I'm not trying to make light of this or anything, but believe it or not, Braille would be a bad idea.
Pardon?
Braille,
I'm sorry.
Braille.
Oh, yes, yeah.
You know, just on the bottom, so if somebody is, you know, visually impaired. I mean, they know their surroundings in their home pretty well,
Right.
but
It's a great suggestion, thank you. Do you have any other questions for me, or anything else you'd like me to talk about?
When you're looking at the escape routes, the mapping of the escape routes, what challenges are you running into?
In Deadwood, it is that those roads used to be well marked. And not so much anymore, and there are enough new people in the community that there's some concern that left to their own devices without guidance, that people can kind of be chasing their tail up there.
That's exactly what I see. Just roadside intersections would be very, very helpful.
Yes, so we've committed to working with them on that. When we went up last month, maybe it was August at this point, we took a big map of the area, really as a worksheet for them. This is for you, sit down, you know, they're the subject matter experts on the topography there. And it's helpful to have a map, with additional attributes, you know, we can turn it into something that's really useful for the community.
Are there any strategies other than a good fire break around the house to prepare them to shelter in place as much as possible? Along their shelters that you can put up in the house. There's an issue.
So I'm glad you asked about the shelters. Sheltering is, it's not complex, maybe not even complicated, but I think there's a lot of confusion about who does what. There was a time when sheltering was synonymous with Red Cross, and it still is. The county has an agreement with Red Cross, not just for the county, but kind of a franchise agreement. And they have a commitment to open X amount of shelters in X amount of time, and that's how we manage that. But the truth is, that Red Cross is often referred to as an external partner. Oh, Red Cross handles it, but the truth is that Red Cross is, and always has been, especially in those initial days or weeks, us. Our facilities, our volunteers, our resources that we provide as the legal jurisdiction. Yes, over time, if we've got a big event, we may see people coming from other regions. But at the outset, really, Red Cross provides us with the framework to help ourselves. So we're in the process of working with Red Cross. They just completed their annual shelter inventory, which is to make sure they still have what they say they have, touch base with some of those shelter owners and validate the information. We also saw new facilities agree to be Red Cross shelters. We've increased the training. Red Cross will be providing 3 shelter trainings over the next couple of months. I think one of them is going to be here. So we're really in the building phase and kind of a resurgence of that. The ice storm really brought to light challenges around sheltering. And in diving into those conversations, it revealed confusion about sheltering and how it works and who does what. So we're getting ready to embark on a project. We call it mass care in emergency management, to conduct a mass care assessment of the entire county. And what that will entail is we're hiring a consultant. And then, you know, when we say we need to take care of people, who are they? Where are they? Who's already taking care of them? What do they have? What do they need? Where will they likely be cut off from one another on a very bad day when they're used to relying on resources they can get to? And so this assessment will start to break that down. We will slice the county up comprehensively so that every resident is accounted for. We'll go first to the municipalities, the unincorporated areas, the fire districts, and just start asking the questions. How many people, when we say your people, how many people are within your jurisdiction? What resources you already have? What do you need? And it's not a plan at this point, but my takeaway from the after actions for the ice storm was that words matter. To use the word respite as an example, say it in a room full of 10 people and you'll probably come up with 5 different definitions. And so the assessment's really designed in part to get us speaking the same language and to develop a shared understanding of how it works, how it doesn't, and how we can do it better. I think every jurisdiction is challenged to provide sheltering in and of themselves during a disaster. They have a lot of other things going on. My hope is that we start to see the mass care system as one big system across the county and how we can work together and work across lines to support one.
If communities come up with their own local action groups, is there a way to get your name or a proper column tree to you in both directions?
Absolutely.
If you're-
Absolutely. I met Chief Spot in person for the first time when he was here at the fire defense a couple months ago. And then, it's just a relationship developing each year if you're not around. Who is it? We had conversations about, we've had these in a lot of the rural areas on the Upper Mackenzie, in Deadwood and Royal River, where the chief does have the authority to request things and ask things, but we know well that he may be really tied up. So if you're not available, who do you give authority ahead of the incident to reach out to us and say, yeah, we need, our community needs help.
So I got a couple of questions that I want to tap in with Director Webb on. So you being the county EOC, we'll call it, planning something, have you folks broken the county up to say it needs assessment for the coast? And we got northbound 101, southbound 101 and 126. Those roads are gonna be not passable. We're pretty much assured of that, whether it's Cascadia, whatever. One of the big things is high water rescue vehicles. Do you folks have those on board? Are they deployable? How would they get here? What I'm trying to say is you talk about the Mackenzie River, they have a different needs assessment. Right? Eugene Springfield, completely, their resources are greater than the west and the east. So have you folks gone into pre-planning the sections of the county, what their needs are gonna be? So it doesn't have to be a request from the incident commander, you can just pull up and say, Western Lane, the coast. Okay, they have a Cascadia, we know that they're gonna need these. So you're not just waiting on it, you can get that ball rolling in advance. Be just like pre-planning a high-rise building for a structure fire, you have a pre-plan. So has the county done that for pre-planning for other areas of Lane County, including us, or is it coming?
Well, we have ongoing planning regarding response all the time. We stay in communication with the different agencies. There's Cascadia and there's everything else.
Sure.
And yes, we can anticipate some of those needs ahead of time just because we're well acquainted with the communities and we engage with them in emergency response planning. But it still needs to be requested, right?
Sure, absolutely, but you mentioned earlier that you're bringing a consultant.
Mhm, mhm.
Is this gonna be something the consultant will do, will break down the county, start,
Absolutely, that's what
because
that
that's what really needs to be done at the forefront,
matters.
not an after the fact.
Yes.
It's gotta be upfront.
Needs, but also situational awareness, right?
Oh, sure. Right.
Reading, understanding if we're not able to communicate, where Florence is most likely to have set up shelter operations. So
Right.
where people are most likely
How are
to
you gonna get
have
it?
mustard and that type of thing.
So, and then my second part to that question is there cooperation with ODOT? Because with all this new drone technology coming on board through AI, a lot of transportation departments have already purchased or are in the process of purchasing drones that are already set up. Say you have 2 drones set up for 126, and they fly 126 to give you real-time information, or into, Mapleton on that side of, and going into Swiss Home up there, or up 101 or south one. Is there cooperation from the state to the county?
It's not something that we're talking about at this moment, but when something happens, absolutely, there's a cooperation between the counties and the state. Our public works people work closely with the ODOT partners, and so when we end up in a functional area, like transportation or communication or whatever it is, mass care, whatever it is, I think there's a shared understanding and expectation that we start communicating up and down the chain of local, county, and state agencies.
So now I'm gonna share personal experience.
Okay,
I did 35 years in the fire service in California, as did my co-director here. And I went through the Loma Prieta earthquake on duty the day it happened. I was on the Oakland Berkeley Hills fire. I was on the San Bruno pipeline explosion. I was at Northridge earthquake. And after the events, we had all these blue ribbon committees. Where were we lacking? What did we do wrong? That kind of stuff. And the biggest thing that came out of all those incidents is that we did not have a pre-plan. So I'm sharing this experience with you. And I'd be more than happy to give you details of everything that we went through. And trying to educate and provide assistance to you now instead of after. Because that was the biggest thing during the Loma Prieta. There was no pre-plan. I mean, granted, the cyberstructure freeway collapse, there wasn't. If it wasn't for the World Series, the death toll down there would have been 10,000 people. Because everybody would have been on the cyberstructure when it all collapsed, all 13 miles of it, whatever. The fires in San Francisco, the flooding in Santa Cruz, I mean, it was a mess. But the biggest thing we found is that there was no pre-plan. Oh yeah, there were drills and this and that. But none of it was. I don't wanna use a bad word here, but I'll just say, everything that we thought we did right, we didn't. So the biggest lesson that we picked up from all those incidents is that we did a pre-plan for the entire county. For fire, earthquake, flood, all of it. And it's all in the EOC. So if a section of the San Francisco Bay Area had a major wildland fire, we would know, okay, go to those pages. And I believe every dispatch center in the Bay Area has one for each county. They're identical. So that's what I'm hoping that this county does. Because the resources available here in this county are a lot less than what they are in some of the bigger metropolitan areas.
absolutely.
And we partnered with the Coast Guard, got them involved. It was a big deal.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think, and I don't know if you've seen it, Chief, I feel like a lot of that has been happening over the last 10 years. What sets us apart culturally from California is that we haven't seen earthquakes, and the preparedness piece is more challenging.
Sure it is.
It's hard, you're here now, and you were there, you've seen that,
Right.
right? And so, but beyond that, not to say people don't wanna plan, they do, but what I've seen is a lot of high level advanced planning that has occurred over the last 10 years at the state and federal levels. That trickles down and gives us the ability to start. I know early on, we do exercises for Cascadia. And say, okay, go, and everybody just go,
Sure.
what, I don't have anything, and so I would say, I think it's a great idea, that localized planning. And I do think we're seeing resources and regional resources and planning efforts that start feeding into what our understanding is about what that'll look like and what people need to expect.
There's a lot of very talented retirees that have a lot of experience. That we sure like to share.
Yes, I hear two things. I hear continuity of operations planning, how you do the job and how you continue to serve the public. When the people that you thought were gonna be there aren't there, and I hear operations planning, functional recovery. How do you as first responders go out and do the things? And how does emergency management anticipate what those things are going to be and be ready to support?
Cause it is gonna happen someday. It's definitely gonna happen. And a lot of people say, oh, the coast won't burn. Oh, yeah, well, we've got the winds, we've got the fuel, and we have the rock. Doesn't have to be 100 degrees out for this stuff to burn. All it needs is a good wind behind it. And the ember casting alone is gonna create spot fires everywhere. Right, and the earthquake is gonna happen. Cascadia is gonna happen.
I didn't mention it at the beginning, but another hat I wear is that I'm the local government stakeholder for the Oregon Seismic Safety Policy Advisory Commission. I just stepped down as chair. I've been on that for 7 years. That's the body that wrote the Oregon Resilience Plan. And if you're familiar with Cascadia, you're probably familiar with the Oregon Resilience Plan. That plan really highlights aspirational in 2013 things that state and local and federal government could be working on to get ready for Cascadia, and we're getting ready to make some updates to that.
So,
You know, the progress, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
oh, yeah.
Right, we don't know when it's gonna.
Absolutely. So is your funding solid to start building the, I'll call it the mobile equipment, the loose items, the things that areas are gonna need? Or is that way down the road? Right now, it's just in planning. I mean, I don't know where you guys get your funding from. Does something from the feds, state,
Us guys,
county?
the county.
Yeah, how that?
Well, some recent developments have rendered our funding not as robust as it's been in the last 10 years. And so I think when I first started in emergency management, we didn't see a lot of funding. We did a lot of things ourselves. There was some funding out there. And then over the last 10 years, we've really seen that increase with the federal funding streams like BRIC, Building Resilient Infrastructure. A lot of that's kind of up in the air right now. Those have been our primary funding sources for the last, 10 or 12 years as we've really been focused acutely on Cascadia, which really started in earnest after the Great Japan Earthquake.
I mean, look at those poor people in the southern states when those floods came through. I mean, they were on their own for not the 72 hours. They were on their own for weeks. And how mismanaged that was. Well, we don't need to see that here. Well, I wish you all the luck. If we can help, please ask.
I'm here with you almost once a month, working on things together, so I'm excited about the emergency operations plan. That's a grant that the county wrote for 3 small cities. I don't know when it was last updated, about 10 years ago. That's always a shot in the arm for community to have somebody come in and facilitate conversations, bring everybody to the table and start going through those considerations. And in fact, at the last WLFEA meeting, they gave a lot of positive comments from people who participated in that.
And when your consultant does come on board, have he or she or them, who's ever doing it, do a check of all the essential services structures in the county. Your police stations, your fire stations, what conditions are they in? And are they going to be able to be functioning in the event of a major event?
Yeah,
We all
that's-
know FEMA says, oh, well, you know, we'll pay you after the fact. Well, no, you should be paying up front, so you're not paying later.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that planning lives in the city's planning architecture, what you're.
I'm saying the county should be asking the cities, give us this information,
Oh,
and it
sure.
needs assessment.
I know that information. Dagami issued, a report, has issued several reports in the last few years that identify anticipated building failure, casualties, and so we've got a lot better data and information to inform planning efforts like you're talking about.
Cause that came up in Loma Prieta. Was that a lot of fire stations were, oh yeah, they may have been within 15 years since being built, but they weren't up to seismic standards where they should have been. That was a failure in a lot of the local building departments, making sure that those essential service structures were up to par.
Sure.
Garage doors with no
Right.
generators fail, I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah, building code standards have improved over the last few years.
Yes, they have.
That's Omni code. And we've made some changes to the state building code. Local jurisdictions are free to adopt, their own standards.
Right.
I know a lot of the communities have worked with DLCD to start looking at that, that side of the planning. It's, yeah.
I don't mean to bombard you, but I
No,
just.
no.
That's why we might.
Lessons learned. Wait a minute.
No, it's me.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Any final question?
I have a question, it came up in that emergency operations, plan meeting. And it was very city centers, but so what's the pathway for requesting resources just outside the city? Let's say there's like a slide on 126. How would I get resources, how would I get the equipment if I needed to get to a house, say, past the slide, and the city has that equipment? Because it came down to, well, who's gonna pay for it? And that comes from county, and I said, well, I don't know, like, do I call it, so what's the process for that? If I need equipment now,
If you need equipment from the city of Florence.
Yeah.
Used outside.
to be used
To
outside,
be used outside the city.
yeah, or, so.
Yeah. I would assume that would be something that you would work out with the city of Florence, either in the moment, or maybe have an established agreement ahead of time, to provide mutual aid. You could request from the county. I think it would be your decision making in the moment. Understanding what resources the county could bring to bear when that timing is, versus what you could do here, by calling in resources from the city.
That's what it seemed like that was the holdup, was the city has to go through the county, is the answer, like, that all has to come through the county, it's outside the city.
So,
I mean, there could be kind of what you.
yeah, and I think generally what you're referring to, and I'll just explain it, is, any jurisdiction is expected to, have the planning and resources in place. When they're not able to do themselves, they have emergency agreements, mutual aid agreements, and the expectation is that once you've reached out to ask the county, or the county reaches out to ask the state, that we have exhausted all those resources. And so in this situation, I would think, having some sort of agreement in place ahead of time with whatever partner you would like to, that you would think you would request resources, if there isn't a natural way for that to occur, and the county, right? Redundancies, doesn't hurt to have more than one solution in place.
Right. I mean, we already covered the entire city, so I mean, the agreement, I think wouldn't necessarily be mutual at that point, it goes outside, it would just be us asking. For resources, but that seemed like. There needs to be a possible conversation with that.
Yeah, well, and landslide on 126, that's the state. So they would need to be part of the conversation as well.
So then you would not be liaisoning in with the state on something that happens in this town? You would just wash your hands and say it's the state's?
No,
Okay. I
if you
didn't
had a
think so.
if you had a standalone incident and you were able to get a hold of ODOT or the city of Florence, yeah, I may not be involved in that. But
Right.
if we're talking about something that is widespread.
Sure,
And you have needs and absolutely, and let me clarify. We'll come to the table if you need for us to, whether it's countywide or not. I've had this conversation with some of our other rural communities. Hey, if you're in the middle of something that doesn't warrant necessarily even activating the county EOC, call us. We can come, that's another thing that we can do in those smaller instances, is show up and just be part of your team.
sure, because
Going through the office or going through city. He is the best way to do that. To bring you to the table.
I think going through the city probably, but I don't know if it was your incident and you needed assistance with it, and the city didn't really have a piece, I think we can be nimble.
because you know. Our folks do a lot of medical transfers. To Riverbend and. Elsewhere. 126 gets closed, there are none. And it's not a certainty that we're gonna have life flight, right, Rob, or. I mean, if they can fly, they can fly, if they can't, they can't, but someone's gonna have to pay for that naturally. So is there any? Talk with working with the military to get their helicopters available for major events? Do
Absolutely.
you have contact with our military, Oregon? Army National Guard?
We don't have a contract with them, they're a state agency that we could reach out and request resources. Done a lot of military over the last 15 years. And those are absolutely resources that we could call in. But they cost.
Of course,
money,
everything,
right? And so they tend to show up in those broader incidents where there's a wider impact to the community.
Well, they're gonna get paid if you FMAG the incident, right? That's what FMAG's for. Because, yeah, we have an airport. There's a good chance that airport's not gonna be usable, so everything's gonna have to come in off of rotary helicopters. They're not gonna get a fixed wing, I don't think, trying to land on 101. So it's all gonna have to come in other methods. Those are the things that need to be addressed.
Yes.
Come in through the water, highly doubtful.
Yeah,
Right.
I can talk to you a little bit about a project I did with the coastal emergency managers 6 years ago. My county had an engagement with the Oregon Military Department, but by extension, the Third Fleet out of San Diego. They did we hosted a hovercraft landing exercise, another ship parked
Excellent.
about 3 miles off. They brought
Yeah.
crowds to shore. We put elected officials on them, sent them back out. My predecessor, Patience Minningham, fed them a full breakfast and then sent them back out on a hovercraft. They toured the ship. We had about 500 people on the shore watching those come in. What did they come to do? They unloaded public works, they unloaded equipment.
Good.
And they explained to us, it was really instructive, when you live in a state and you haven't lived here your whole life, but we don't have Title 10 resources, what we call
No.
DoD resources, right? We have the Oregon Military Department. And so for somebody like me and many people, that was just something they hadn't seen before. And it was great for planning. And I'll talk about that in just a minute, but it was also great for preparedness. I'm always grateful for people that move here from California because they get the earthquake thing. People that have lived in Oregon their whole lives, not so much. So 500 people on the beach on that day that I imagined we're going, oh, wow, the Navy's here, this actually must be a thing. What we did on the agency side was that we finished that, we had to have beach masters come up and establish the plan for the landing that day. And they said, well, while we're here, could we look at other potential landing sites? We'll have to come and assess the area before we would land here after a Cascadia, but let's see what you've got. Clatsop County is the highest hazard county, for Cascadia, more people on property in the inundation zone than any other county. And it is the topography, but it also gave us 5 landing sites. It's that same topography that makes it more accessible.
Sure.
From there, they said, well, could you talk to some of the other counties? And so by the end of that, the thing in the background that really nobody knew about, that was the most exciting for me as an emergency planner was that Naval Beach One came back, brought their whole team, their beach masters, and they toured all 7 counties and established all potential landing sites.
So they have pre-planned the
Yeah,
coast.
pre-planned, 17.
That's very good.
17 locations up and down the Oregon coast.
So is San Diego the closest with the hovercraft, or are there any in
San
Washington?
Diego
that
is the
come down?
closest, yeah. I'll tell you something else, that was a fun, I'm probably going over my time.
I'm sorry.
That was a great exercise, it gave, for years, people have been saying, ship to shore, joint logistics over the shore, and it was just really this anecdotal idea. And so it really put into, gave us a tangible idea, and we learned so much. It took them 8 hours to get here. And so that's 8 hours after they figure
Right.
out, we talk about pre-planning, that's where some pre-planning is occurring. With the federal government
Yes.
in terms of understanding, that's the plan, public works equipment, not cops, not showers, not water.
No.
Public works equipment, hand you the keys, get your roads cleared. And so that was one thing. The other thing, we toured one of their motherships in Portland before we set off this effort. And it was the Oregon Military Department and my county and the Coast Guard. And so we walked through the comms room and everybody goes, oh yeah, we got this, we got this, we got this. And I said, well, wait a minute, like this is where we go wrong. We're so taken with our own equipment that we don't stop to think about interoperability, or we make assumptions about it. And can we just try to achieve communications ship to shore and just see if it works, see what that looks like? We did. And I wouldn't learn until the following spring at the senior leader seminar in Seattle, where they were reporting on our exercise, that it was the first time that they had ever achieved ship to shore communications with local government domestically during an event like that.
Good.
So it was encouraging. It wasn't when we thought. It wasn't, it didn't happen as we expected it to, but it happened. And so really diving into those austere communications and understanding what that looks like. We put up an HF title system just for that, exercise. And the last thing I'll say, they're trying to link this together with that little conversation as well. Ham radio. I had somebody say to me the other day, I don't think it's on its way out. I think, we're gonna go to South Runners. Really? Are we? I think a lot about Cascadia, and I think about those austere communications. I also lived on the North Coast for 25 years, and during the 2007 storm, we didn't have a way to talk to even each other in the cities or Salem. That was ham radio.
Mhm.
So we're seeing a resurgence.
That's good.
You have that capability here. And one of the big takeaways from the ice storm was, where do we plug into the county? Where do we plug into the county? How do we learn more about that? So we worked at really just letting people know that we're there during events. We've increased our cooperator list. That's 250 people that get an email, agencies that get an email when we activate the Emergency Operations Center. We have an amateur radio capability within our search and rescue, and it's very mission oriented, and they have great skills, great technical skills. But what we haven't had is an amateur radio capability attached to the Emergency Operations Center. Losara, that's our search and rescue radio operators, of course they'd help us, but they probably going to have other things that they're working on. And so we're standing up a capability so that we could start practicing, figuring out how we're gonna communicate with Deadwood, this Florence, and I look forward to standing that up in the next year, really increasing the capability.
We have quite a few ham operators, right, chief? There's,
We have a great group.
yeah,
Yeah,
great.
this is a.
They're gonna be vital, there's no doubt about it.
So we
Absolutely.
got a question, Director Stent, sorry, we haven't been ignoring you.
I wanted to let you know, I've been involved in a multi-county disaster preparedness effort for several months. One of the partners we have is ODART, which is the Oregon Disaster Airlift Response Team. These are volunteer pilots. They've actually done flights into Silkus and Wohig to show that they can land on water. You know, we've also been going around talking to farmers who might have a landing field that we can use. But ODART is going to be vital to getting supplies, and they can also transport people in medical emergency. But Jim, I'd like to talk to you sometime, maybe before the next meeting, and I'll bring you up to date on what this effort is.
Great, thank you.
That's great. I work closely with Jim. We're in the process of executing an emergency agreement between the county and ODART. We've got a suite of agreements actually, and then there is a debris management and monitoring contract that the county will undertake. Kind of in that expansive way, right? It's our contract, but it's a contract that any of the municipalities can take that on in an event. Thanks for highlighting ODART.
Any other questions? Great, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You can certainly wait around if you want to do. Okay. Consent agenda consisting of meeting minutes, staff reports, and correspondence. Is there anything that a director would like taken out of the consent agenda? Hearing none, consent agenda is approved as amended. We have financials.
So we're on the two of this fiscal year. We are now, or I should say, the admin office is now fully staffed. We have Ms. Foley back. And we've been slowly, rating her, getting her trained on the new system, and we're so happy to have her back. She's been helping us dot our i's and cross our t's, and we've sent the auditors everything for SVFR this week. And we are working on getting Western Line Ambulance and WLFEA sent. Hopefully we'll have them all that information sent to the auditors by Monday. Life Med, we are still bringing in applications. We have processed 1,623 total applications for the 25-26 fiscal year. We still need board signatures for the bank accounts. We are missing Director Heppel, Director Stent, and Director Russell.
You're out of luck today.
So if you guys could come see us so we can get those signatures, that would be helpful. And then we had some folks retire, as you guys know, and unfortunately, when we moved all of the employees over to WLFEA, FERS doesn't recognize that. They do any adjustments with the entity that the employee was with, and so we're responsible for those. They have taken, they automatically take money out of our account, so we need to do a budget resolution for Western Line Ambulance. And we're just wanting to, you guys have a draft in front of you for the resolution.
We just need to take $1,000 from operating contingency and move it over to Bird's pension. It would be resolution 2025 to amend the budget.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2025 -5.
Motion by Dr. Webb, second by Dr. Holbrook. Any discussion? You do roll call vote, Colin, for Western Line Ambulance District?
Director Cindy Russell. Linda Stint. Adam Holbrook,
Yes.
Vanessa Bus,
What she's leaving.
Mike Webb.
Yes. Did Linda vote?
I did, but I was a little late getting my mute button off.
Perfect, thank you.
Linda has her hand up, is that on purpose?
Not anymore.
There, then.
And then in your board packet, is the information for the WLFEA conference. I also have some blank registrations up here. If anybody is interested in going to that conference, you could fill one of these out, you can get us back to it. Get it back to us so we can get you registered. That would be fabulous. I think that's all I have, unless you guys have anything for me.
Now, the reports are looking much good. Thank you.
So I wanted to add just a little item to the budget. We have some just fantastic financial news. I'm gonna hand it over to my deputy chief since he was responsible for that.
So we got word yesterday that our application for the fiscal year 2024 assistant firefighters grant was approved. And that's in the amount of 500,000. It's 477 from the government with it, and then we throw in 23,000. And that's to buy all new air packs for the department. So, yeah, it's great news. Definitely, yeah, definitely, needed with all of our capital expenses. And they definitely took their time and let us know. So it's coming down the wire there, but yeah, great news. We're excited to get going. The SCBA committee did a great job, testing all the packs, pretty comprehensively. And so we'll probably get together the grants a little bit more than we need. And so we might be able to add some extra features such as, upgraded comms or, heads up ticks for just, some tactical awareness. So, that'll be happening here in the next couple of weeks, and we'll get those. And I think depending on how many other departments are in the same boat as we are, they still guarantee that 90-day delivery from the order. So should be seeing those.
What manufacturer did they go with?
We went with MSA.
MSA.
Yeah.
And our compressor is compatible?
Yeah, so we upgraded, and PJ jump in here, but if I'm wrong, our compressor is starting to get up there in age, 15 plus years now. But it's still going. What did we just replace in there?
It's one of the little valves inside the compressor motor.
Is it
I
hard
think
to
we
find parts though, because of its age?
That one we got actually given to us by Medford Fire.
Oh, good.
That was a breaker.
Okay. But I mean, right now.
Good.
I mean, the only
Yeah.
problem that we've had.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the only problem we've had. That was a recent problem. It seems to be better now, again, knock on wood. But. We definitely freed up some capital. Hopefully, we don't need to go there, but our compressor is compatible. There's just a little adapter to fill up those air balls.
So the old air packs, are they buying them back for credit or what are they gonna?
Well, we haven't decided yet what we're gonna do with those. We had to get additional air bottles because ours were expired. So we had to get additional air bottles with a shorter life on them. But, we could take them, we could issue them out to other departments for training, for parts. There's other departments that have those same air packs that are probably pressed for parts like we were, that could probably use them. But we'll have more than enough air packs with the grant
Very good.
to just. Maybe,
Congratulations,
yeah, it's,
that's huge.
pretty awesome.
How many minute models did you go with?
45. Well, that's what, we haven't gone with anything yet, but that's what we voted for.
Still substantial.
Yeah.
Good job.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. So old business. Closed PERS, unfunded liability.
So last month we, talked about we were able to, qualify with some funding for the match for PERS. They're no longer going to, or if they do this again, it's gonna be a few years before they, do the match program again. We would like to close the Western Lane ambulance PERS UAL account, and just transfer those funds into the general fund.
How much is in,
59,795.
that was money we're holding in case that
They did the matching, and so at this point, we only qualified for the 151, which still wasn't the full amount that we had in bid bar. But we'd like to close this account. If we want to open another account, we prefer to open it under WLFEA at some point. But we really don't meet those qualifications for the match. We have to wait until there's any extra money left over, and we were able to get a little bit of it, but not the full amount that we had saved for. So we just want to close the account.
do you need a motion?
I'll motion.
We have a second, Linda?
Motion by Director Holbrook, second by. Second.
I'll second.
Director Webb. You roll call vote, Eric, or call?
Director Cindy Russell. Linda Stent,
Yes.
Adam Holbrook.
Yeah.
Vanessa Bus, Mike Webb.
Yes.
The next item, we have determined a vendor for our IT services. And the RFP is in your packet along with the contract. We did a committee, and we had several different people on the committee. We had, Don Quinn was on it, Sky, Director, Stanton was on it, Laura, no, Michael Morton, Andy was on it. And so, we got it down to 2 vendors, and we brought them in for an interview. And the vote was for DC3. They were kind of middle of the road funding wise. They have, currently they're informing that they currently have a, special going on. If we signed up, we would have signed up last month, but we would have gotten 3 months, free services, and, we didn't make that, but they are willing to, give us the same deal. That wasn't a part of the selection process. But we need to get the vote then, if we want to go forward with this contract.
This is WLFEA one.
It is.
So I would make a motion to accept the RFP IT services as proposed.
Second.
Motion by Director Webb, second by Director Boise. Any discussion? Feel well, roll call votes.
Starting with the state bar directors, Stephanie Restrepo,
Yes.
Lori Keppel. Keith Stanton. Jim Boise,
Yes.
David Carrillo,
Yes.
Western Lane directors, Cindy Russell. Linda Stent.
Yes.
Adam Holbrook,
Yes.
Vanessa Bus, Mike Webb.
Yes.
Record Nicole,
I don't know.
did she hear, she was on there, did she hear you?
Lori, did you vote?
I thought I
So-
did, but yes, again. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, board retreat update, so we're talking about our board retreat. And, so we sent out a survey monkey. And the directors that responded evenly split among all the choices, so you guys were no help at all. So it looks like, well, as far as which month we'd like to have it, it's either November or January, December's out, that was good. Would it be one day or over multiple days? One day was three responses and 2 days was 4 responses. Nobody wanted a 3-day. When would you like to attend? It was during the, it would be daytime, either weekend or weekday. The evening is out. Would you like the retreat to be on-site or off-site? We had 3 for Station 1 meeting room, 3 for the event center, nobody for the casino. One had no preference, was for Rob's house, and and one at DC, I'm not sure. That was Washington DC or?
Remember the Caribbean?
And ranked topics, topics are pretty much what we thought they would be. View and update strategic plan was number 1, succession plan. 2, capital plans and budget predictions, 3 and 4. And then the program reviews. We may not do all the program reviews, some are a little bit lower, and then upward cooperation. I think we up there, but you did what? Oh, yeah, and levy, upcoming levy election, we'll be talking about that. So we'll be sending out, a little bit more firm detail. And, hopefully we can get this, will probably be, I think we'll look November, get it done.
Good.
If not, then we'll go January, we'll try and get that going.
Hopefully everyone would make it.
So policies, any questions on policies? Well, then shelter poetry records and all those others, training records, or policies. Carry none, new business, policies for review, if you have a chance, want to read those policies and give some feedback. Hear them. Hey, director comments, would any directors like to comment? On anything,
We approved the minutes from last meeting.
that's in the consent agenda.
Okay.
You threw me there for a second. Yes, we did.
Just like to thank Tiffany for coming over. Yes, it was a very
Yes,
important
thank you.
conversation.
Thank you for having.
Sorry I bombarded you.
No, I enjoyed it.
Any other director comments? Hearing none, meeting is adjourned, next board meeting on Thursday, October 23rd, yeah.
You want these back or can I drive down the highway?
Good luck in your window.
It's on the end.
Yeah.
What's that?